You are in the rant wormhole, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by becoming one of those. This one's for Miki Stopwatch, who says, rant about the fan narratives that surround certain studios, despite usually being ahistorical, based on only the most popular shows, or based solely around the works of certain key staff members. I know this rant covers ground from the podcast you did with Canepa 2 or so years ago, but I still see the same narratives repeated over and over again. The fall of Kyoto Animation, the stamp of quality of Studios Bones, Madhouse, JC Staff, and Production IG, Wada's Mappa will always fall apart in the 11th hour, Studio Dean will adapt anything, etc. This is by no means a comprehensive list, so feel free to provide examples which you've seen over the years, which ones you find the most laughable, and which ones are closest to the truth, which ones were once true but have proven unreliable over time. I'm just going to go through the ones that you actually said, because otherwise I could probably talk about every single studio there is, and this will definitely be long enough as it is. So, for instance, the fall of Kyoto Animation. I kind of talked about this in the video, ranting about Kyoto Animation getting boring, but, I think that there's a good reason to have that belief, because there is a reason that KyoAni has changed the kind of shows that they do. There's a reason that they are pursuing this other style, and if you are somebody who doesn't favor that over the old style, you are going to come away with the feeling that the studio has fallen. So it's not that there's no logic behind that. It's just an oversimplification of what's going on, Stamp of quality from Bones, Madhouse, JC Staff and Production. I've never heard of a JC Staff stamp of quality before, so I don't know who you've heard that one from. Bones, I do think there was a time when Bones was reliably... I won't even say there was a time. Bones is pretty reliable that you're going to get a certain level of at least action animation quality. And it's just a matter of who works there. It's just a matter of, the fact that they happen to have connections to a lot of phenomenal animators who tend to show up on their shows. I mean, Yutaka Nakamura has done work in, most of Bones' catalog, so as long as he's around, you're gonna get amazing Utapon fight scenes in Bones shows, It's not an inherent quality of Bones, but you can rely on that narrative because usually he will be in a Bones show, So, at the very least, if you watch a Bones action show, you're probably gonna see an incredible fight scene, and, it's been pretty consistent across their whole career, even if the show's not great, I'm thinking of all the early Bones shows, something like, there's always a solidity to their animation as well. They're not some, they tend to have more, almost I don't want to say Western style, but they have that on-model fluid animation that you would normally see in the West. I think that mostly comes from being ex-Sunrise, and that Sunrise also, reliably has amazing action scenes. You're going to see better robots than you're going to see elsewhere from Sunrise, and the people who formed Bones were core staff from there, and I think they took a lot of that ethos with them. Ultimately, yes, a studio is just a gathering of people. A studio in itself doesn't have an identity, but if the same people keep working for the studio, then the studio is going to be those people. You might as well think of it as those people, So I do think Bones is... Maybe they're not a stamp of absolute quality as in the show's going to be good, but even if you're watching Number 6 or Ungo, shows that don't even seem like action shows, you're going to get amazing action scenes because it's Studio Bones and they're gonna put that in there, I think that's pretty reliable. Madhouse, I think a lot of people understand this, but maybe not enough, that Madhouse is not the studio they were. Madhouse used to be run by Masao Maruyama, and it used to have, most of the people working there or running the studio were highly visual directors. You had, Rintaro and, oh, goddammit, what's his name? The Ninja Scroll dude. Fuck. Name's slipping my mind right now. Oh god, why can't I think of his fucking name? Shit. Well, point being, there was a bunch of highly visually focused directors who were doing all the early work at Madhouse. And so, like, for a long time, yes, Madhouse reliably was going to have incredible visual presentation in their shows. And, like, Masao Maruyama, as a producer who was the one, picking most of what they did at Madhouse, he tended to favor stuff that was badass, stuff that had great action, stuff that was has a unique design sense, and there was a stretch of time where, yeah, Madhouse was putting out all the most interesting stuff on TV. I mean, if you look at, like, fall 2008, when they're airing, like, Kashern Sins alongside, what was that one? The one show by the Death Note guy who, like, nobody watched, by Tetsuro Araki. It starts with a K. I don't remember the name of it. They were airing that, which also had incredible animation. Morio no Hako. Like, all these were weird-ass shows that were, like, nothing else on TV, and they're all running at the same time, and they're all Madhouse, and they all look incredible, Eventually, that was too much. Masao Maruyama bankrupted the studio, making probably making Redline or something. I don't know. Don't quote me. But, or Satoshi Kon, who used to direct for the studio. Yes, it's because they have all these visual directors, but they have all these visual directors because Masao Maruyama's running the studio. He left in 2010, so Madhouse isn't that studio anymore. The people running it are a completely different team, and if you just look, like, it's not that they never did, like, stuff that wasn't as incredible as everything else, because, like, ultimately a studio's got to make money. They can't always be doing artsy projects. They can't always be doing the pet project of the creators who are the head board. Sometimes they're going to make something that's not going to be directed by any of those guys. It's going to be by their third string director, and they're going to make the fucking Devil May Cry adaptation or something, or a bunch of Marvel shows because they need money, and that puts it on the table. Or Stitch, for, not that it's bad or anything, but, like, studios, even directors, you can say, like, historically there's this idea of the one for me, one for you, or one for me, one for the audience, of, like, directors who will make an artsy film and then a blockbuster film. Madhouse clearly was doing that to fund the crazy shit that they do, but eventually they fell apart, and since the moment Masao Maruyama left, Madhouse has never been the same. They've never had that same atmosphere, and anybody who just looks at, if you just go, like, oh, let me look at a list of all the shows the studio has made. Oh, wow, they've made everything good. Madhouse must be the best studio. It's like, that's not the studio they are anymore. So, you just need to put that out of your mind. JC Staff has always just kind of been like a jack-of-all-trades studio, I feel like. They've done everything at all times, of every level of quality. I don't think there's been times where JC Staff, clearly because they had a successful show, they made something else like it. They had, like, the big trio of tsundere Rie Kugamiya shows back in the 2000s. Like, obviously Shana was a success, so they tried to duplicate it with Zero no Tsukaima and, later Aria the Scarlet Ammo. Like, these are all Toradora. Like, they keep putting Rie Kugamiya as a lolly in the lead of a show. Like, that clearly has to do with the fact that they had succeeded with it. So that is a studio thing, but again, it's not, like, inherent to the identity of the studio that they're going to do that. It's just a thing they did. Production IG, like, I think that they fall into a similar category with Madhouse, with the one for us, one for them kind of mentality. They clearly like to have powerful original projects, and they have an amazing team of veteran animators who are capable of bringing, exceptional quality to the table on a lot of shows. And, like, even fucking shonen adaptations and shit that they do are gonna have better animation than the average one, but does this mean inherently it's a stamp of quality if it comes from Production IG? No. But, is it safer of a bet to think that you're going to get good animation from them? Yes. Safer than most of the time, But they've made plenty of dog shit. Every studio, I think, has made some kind of dog shit. Obviously, like, Studio Shaft, like, you can rely on, at the very least, you're going to get something very visually distinctive because that's how Shaft operates, So, it's not unfair to say that there is a Mappa falling apart in the 11th hour is one of those weird things where it seems like there's no way that it should make sense, right? And yet here we are. And that's the same way I feel about A1 Pictures. It's like, I've almost never seen a show of theirs that starts and ends good. Like, a lot of their shows that I was hyped for at the beginning, they just go downhill. And I don't know why. There's no logical explanation. There's no consistency in the people working on them. There's no, like, there's no reason, there's no logic for this pattern to emerge. It just has. And I think in cases like that, it's almost like talking about the boogeyman, you know, like, or dragons. It's like we all know it's not real, and yet we all have a conception of it, kind of thing. It's like, I know A1 Pictures, for no reason, this thing is true. It just is true that their shows have bad writing, and I don't know why. I wish I did. It's not 100% of the time, but it's like 90% of the time, and they make a lot of fucking shows, you know? And with Mappa, it's the same kind of story. It's like, there's no logic behind why their shows should go downhill, but they always do. Don't know what's going on there, you know? It's a weird thing. But of course, it's also a matter of opinion. Maybe it's just Wada and me who feel that way, but it's a tendency. Studio Dean will adapt anything. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but they do have a tendency to continue shows. Like, I think that Studio Dean is the most likely to continually produce sequels to a show that they have the rights to out of any studio, because they'll keep coming back to stuff, and that is very much a studio mentality thing, or even just a producer mentality thing. Like, I've heard Masao Maruyama in person say that, like, he, as the leader of Madhouse, does not like to return to shows unless it's Hajime no Ippo, and thus that was the culture of Madhouse for a long time. Now that he's gone, they return to shows all the time, you know? So, again, it's not a matter of, it's not as though you have to think of saying something about a studio as meaning that is permanently true or has always been true. You know, it can be true of a studio for a time, and yes, it's because of who worked there, but that also is what the studio is who is working for it at that moment. Alright, I've gone on too long about this.